later on this afternoon. Right, 2 races to go in the GP Plate Finals. The next one up is the MightE. So the MightE Bambino race, the GP Plate Final. We can say that Kane Langley has got pole position, but take a look at this. How close is this? 0.029 seconds between Kane's lap time of 59.35 and Ansel Murray's lap time of 59.38. 0.03 of a second. And again, they had a good battle in race 1, I seem to remember. So, no, sorry, Kane Langley came away with a race victory, but Ansel Murray really came through the order in race 1. So hopefully the GP plate will be exactly the same. Rhys David Richardson, he's in 3rd on the grid with Harris Barber in P4, Freddie Baker in P5, Sidney Nell in 6th place, and Albert Bachler in, oh, Bachelor even, in 7th. Max Joy is in 8th. Now the drivers are in the dummy grid still, so there will, I mean, it is going to be a standing start. So, like I mentioned, before the E stands for electronic, obviously. We're starting to get more and more used to seeing electronic forms of motorsport, and karting is no different. And the BKC like to try and get it involved as well. So it's an electric Bambino, target audience and driver that they're looking for around the age of 4 years old. They also do a MightE Cadet as well. So there's opportunities to go through the ranks and learn your trade in electric MightE machines. I'm sure they'll probably go higher powered as well when they get the technology and they get the interest. Obviously, the right thing to do, arguably, is to try and get the interest from an early age. The drivers like it, they want to move to cadet, and then there's all of a sudden there's a demand because they want to go higher powered, and they carry on going in that formation. So MightE wanting to capture that early audience, which is exactly why they're here at the Bambino Kart Club. Going to be a standing start, and speeds up to 50 miles an hour. Langley has taken 3 race victories and make that 4 after this morning's race as well. Starting on pole position, so the qualifying may well suggest that this is going to be very close, but the results that have been so far suggest that Langley maybe was holding a little bit back in reserve. We'll keep an eye on how he gets on. And obviously the rest of the field. If we're talking championship, though, Ansel Murray is 2nd place in the championship, which should suggest that it's going to be very close between himself and Rhys David Richardson. And if off the line, it's a standing start at the end of the day, if off the line Ansel or Rhys David can get alongside or ahead of Kane up to T2, well, that's going to be crucial, because Kane could well pull away. So as the drivers line up on the grid, it's hard to tell whether the engines are running successfully, but because obviously it is so quiet. And I suppose for any kart tracks out there that maybe have noise restrictions, so they have to stop racing at a certain time, electric karts may well be the answer. You never know. You could put them at the back end of the order, and there would be no noise restrictions complaints anyway, because it is absolutely silent, and it's so silent that they've actually jumped me on the start there. But it's a great start by Kane Langley. Oh, the 96 karts of Ansel Murray and Rhys David Richardson getting a bit too close for comfort there into T1. Kane Langley is absolutely flown off in the distance now. Great reaction time from him. Good throttle application as well. And these, I mean, it's an electric vehicle. We know how quick electric cars get up to speed. These karts get up to speed in equal measure as well. Apparently, they're capable of up to about 50 miles an hour, which is quite incredible. They might be tiled down slightly due to the fact that obviously these drivers are quite young, but we'll have to, maybe I can get someone to tell me that throughout the lunch period. So Rhys David Richardson gets ahead of Ansel Murray, pretty crucial. But Kane Langley, I mean, as we said before, this is the GP plates. All the marbles are for only first place. And at the moment, Kane is flying away with it. He's already got a gap of 1.5 seconds to Rhys David Richardson. Ansel Murray about a second and a half behind him, or just over a second really. It's probably a bit unfair to say a second and a half. Then Harris Barber in 4th position, Sidney Nell in 5th, Freddie Baker in 6th, with Albert Batchelor even in 7th place. 8th is Max Joy rounding out the field. And like I said before, if you see a slight difference in number plate here, there and everywhere, then it's quite important to note that it's a novice plate. So if it's a black and white number plate, you're looking at a novice. If you're looking at blue and black, you're looking at a qualified driver sort of thing. So realistically, Kane Langley, Rhys David Richardson are the only 2 drivers that are the sort of qualified, fully qualified drivers. Everybody else is a novice in this series. Looking at the rest of the field, then it is Richardson ahead of Murray, but for how much longer? I can tell you that Murray was actually the fastest lap of the race in that previous lap, so he's caught right back up to Rhys David Richardson, but you don't really need me to tell you that because you can visually see it in front of your eyes as well on the screens or in real life if you're listening to this over the tannoy. As we see now, going through Sector 3, Ansel Murray. So, as I said, I mentioned the championship before, but it is worth noting as well, because you might be thinking that Kane Langley running away with this a little bit. That seems to be the way that it's sort of gone, but again, it's because we've had Jensen Brown in this championship. Now, Jensen Brown, he is in the Micro Maxes now, I believe. We saw him earlier on, and he slipped down to 5th place because he did the first 2 rounds in the MightE Bambino Kart. He gained a clean sweep, all wins in round number 1. In round number 2, he got an even split of race wins and 2nd places. And then in round 3 is when I assume he changed to the Micro Max because he disappeared off the screen basically for it, of the results. And that's allowed the likes of Kane Langley to really gain an advantage. Here is, just as I was looking at that, Ansel Murray, sorry about that, Ansel Murray got through on Rhys David Richardson. So there is a swap for P2, and it's basically now as they were when they started, which is, I think, as everyone is, as they started. I'm just going to have a check on the grid and see if anybody's sort of made any big moves. So Sidney Nell has overtaken Freddie Baker even, and that is the only change from the qualifying order so far. We've obviously had a few more overtakes, but they've sussed themselves out into the same order pretty much that they qualified in. 1.8 second gap between Langley and Murray is not as big as I was potentially expecting here for Kane Langley. I was expecting as those 2 started fighting each other that we would see potentially a bigger gap between 1st and 2nd, but still a 1.8 second gap is still just as effective as a 3 second gap, as long as you keep that 1.8 second gap, if that makes sense. It doesn't matter how you cross the line first, it just matters that you cross the line in 1st place. And to be honest, it could extend because Richardson has all of a sudden found some momentum and is now trying to catch up to Murray. But in that last lap, Kane Langley, 0.4 of a second down, in fact, half a second down on Rhys David Richardson. The 2nd and 3rd place drivers are catching Kane Langley. And if they're smart about this and they work together, they could see that lead evaporate by the end of this race. We've got less than 5 minutes left, about 4.5 minutes to go. Been a 10-minute race, obviously, just like the other GP plates. And it's going to be very important for them to work together if they've got any opportunity at either of them trying to take home that GP plate. I think maybe Kane Langley has a little bit of reserve. Maybe he's just taking it easy. He might have got a signal off the side off his mechanic saying, you know, you don't need to be going full on, flat out. You can sort of chill out a little bit, but it's a dangerous message to send because before you get enough race experience, you basically just come fully off the throttle and you don't quite all of a sudden the second and a half gap or 2 second gap can just disappear within 2 laps. They are still catching, but only by a tenth in that previous lap. I think, as I said before, though, if these two stopped falling over each other, stopped looking up each other's insides and outsides, they would quite easily catch Kane and Langley here. And we could be in for a bit of a barnstorming final 2 laps. As soon as Murray is within touching distance of the first place driver, he's obviously going to be trying to get good runs through the final corner. And again, he'll be in that situation we've seen a lot. Bit dangerous to be in the middle. There's a back marker. I'm not sure who that is, but Kane's going to have to get past him rather quickly. And he's still not past him. It's the 54 of Albert Batchelor. Now he's getting out of the way. He's looking at his mirror now. He's sort of moving across slightly, and he is held up. He's held up Kane Langley, and that's allowed Murray to sail on through. Ansel Murray takes the race lead here. Kane Langley couldn't get past the back marker. It looked like the back marker was sort of slightly moving all over the place, and that has allowed Murray to all of a sudden take this race lead. 2.5 minutes to go. Langley needs to get his head down. Reese David Richardson again got caught behind Langley. Didn't follow Murray through, but again, here are some more back markers. Sidney Nell, got him on the apex with the left-hander. That's going to really hurt a few drivers. And I think, if anything, it's hurt Langley again. He's been forced well wide, and Ansel Murray is absolutely flying here through the back markers. Reese David Richardson has just been hung out to dry there. That's really unfortunate for Richardson. In that last lap, put it this way, Ansel Murray was 2 seconds quicker than either of the drivers. Well, he was 2 seconds quicker than Kane Langley. He was 3 seconds quicker than Reese David Richardson. A massive margin of error there, and unfortunately it was because we were catching up with some back markers, which was a bit disappointing, because we'd like to see them obey the blue flags. But now Kane Langley has got his head down. He's got someone to chase rather than be chased. He's looking a little bit more fighty as Murray went very wide through that double left-hander. Luckily carried enough speed through the right, but there's opportunity here for Langley to get this race victory back under his belt and to try and get that GP plate. 1 minute and 15 seconds to go. Oh, that's a very different line there taken by Langley. Again, trying to psych out Murray, I feel. It's going towards the inside. That's going to ruin his run slightly. Is Langley going to have this? Was there a little bit of a point there by Murray? Is he selling him to go one way? No, it's just the camera angle. It's closing him off nicely. I don't think there's going to be any move, but with 50 seconds left to go, I think we may well have this lap plus 2 more. It's going to be difficult to guess realistically. I think we're going to get another couple of laps in here, unless they start fighting and hold each other up. We'll never know. I have to say, it is rather ominous not having the roar of, or the rumble, I should say, of 4 strokes, or the scream of 2 strokes in the background while commentating. It's quite eerie here in the northern countryside, but it's quite a refreshing sort of experience, to be honest. It's quite cool. I could get used to it, sort of thing. Murray leading the way then with 10 seconds left to go, which means he's going to have to do this for 2 more laps. We're now on to the penultimate lap of the race as the timer ticks down to 0. Langley is, to be fair to Murray, Langley is a fair distance away from him. Richardson has unfortunately been dropped rather substantially after that little quarrel, shall we say, with the back markers. That really was the catalyst to shake this order up. But to be fair to Ansel Murray, he was quicker than Langley. It just meant that he got the overtaking opportunity laps, like 3 or 4 laps before he probably would have done if it was just on pure pace. Again, different moves, different lines being taken by Langley and Murray. Murray trying to get towards the inside again. This is obviously the penultimate lap, not quite the final lap, so Langley, he just needs to focus on trying to get up to the back bumper. That's a nice line he's taking, keeping it to the right, setting up the last right-hander, the final corner here. Not flowing out too wide, but he's a lot closer than he was before. Through turn 1, if he gets a decent run here, he needs to stay in the draft a touch. He's weaving left and right to try and put Murray off. It could work, but he's not utilising the draft and the toe to his full effect there, which is a bit of a shame. I mean, to be fair, these karts are probably maxed out. The electric motor's probably maxed out fairly early on up the hill. But again, sometimes weaving left and right, it can scrub more speed off. You could be more damaged than good. And Murray, all he needed to do was stay on the straight and narrow and just keep his kart in his position that he has done ever since he got into the race lead. Langley hasn't realistically put a nose up the inside or threatened him at all. Murray hasn't put a foot wrong since getting into the race lead. As I say that, maybe a little bit of a door banging, we could say. But it is going to be Murray to take the victory here at the GP plate at the BKC. The MightE GP plate goes to Murray, if you didn't get that impression already. Langley takes second place. I'm sure he'll be slightly disappointed with the way he lost the lead. Rhys David Richardson will be slightly disappointed that he wasn't involved in the battle for the race lead. But at the end of the day, traffic management is a big part of motorsport. I'm sure the back markers will be reminded of what the blue flag means and to try and keep out of the way of the other drivers. I've just realised that we haven't had the rest of the karts cross the finish line yet. That is the gap that we've been opening up here between the top three. Coming across the line is Harris Barber, 37 seconds behind. And that's 3/4 of the lap with these guys. Baker in 5th. Nell and Batchelor were lapped, so they have already finished technically. Just waiting for Harris Baker, who was, I believe, 56 seconds behind the three leaders, and a lap time round here is 58 seconds. So Batchelor effectively having the broadcast keep another entire lap there, which we don't mind. Of course, it's quite peaceful with the electric karts going round. I think we're still waiting for Baker. I think that was a back marker in the form of Max Joy. Not having too many joys at the moment at the back of the field. So coming across the line now, will Freddie Baker take the checkered, or will he just be directed into the pit lane and just be awarded that 5th place? I'm not entirely sure. I think he's going into the pits because everybody else seems to have done so. I can only see Max Joy out there on the circuit at the moment, so unless we've had a spinner in the form of Freddie Baker, he's just been advised to go into the pits so we don't have to spend all the time. A good race by Ansel Murray and Kane Langley, very exciting for the MightE. The future is bright, we should say, for the MightE series.